Hey everyone, this is Fantasy and Frames Mental Health Awareness Series. I'm your host, Zach, at FF Triple Batman. Fantasy and Frames fully supports mental health awareness, and this series will come out every Monday morning through the summer on our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe, hit that bell so you don't miss any of our episodes. We will be discussing a specific topic each episode, and if you ever have any questions, you can always leave a comment or feel free to DM me if you would like a little more privacy. I could not think of a better person to talk about mental health than with an expert, my wife, Meghan. So this episode, we are going to talk about a topic that will hit home for a lot of people. Some of you watching may not have accepted that you do this yet, but really look inside and be honest with yourself if you want to make a genuine positive change. We are going to discuss self-sabotage. So can you tell me the textbook definition of self-sabotage?
Self-sabotage occurs when you do or don't do things that block your success or prevent you from accomplishing your goals. Self-sabotaging behaviors can affect your personal and professional success, as well as your physical, emotional, and mental health. Self-sabotaging behaviors can happen consciously or unconsciously, although typically most of my clients are not really aware of their toxic cycles, at least when we first start. An example of conscious self-sabotage involves behaving in a way that is not compatible with your goal, for instance, of making healthy choices by consistently deviating from your diet or signing up for a gym membership in January, only to suddenly drop in attendance after a few weeks. An example of unconscious self-sabotage is where things are not as obvious and you undermine a personal goal without even realizing it, such as continuing to eat when you're full because you learned as a child to ignore that fullness cue, possibly due to your parents serving you too much food and then reprimanding you for not eating all of it.
Okay, so I've dealt with my own issues of self-sabotage through parts of my life. It really took going to therapy and talking through it to realize what I was doing was chronic self-sabotage. What else can you share to help the viewers understand self-sabotage?
So there's two important topics to understand when discussing self-sabotage. The first is a self-fulfilling prophecy, which is the phenomenon where your expectation for behavior of another person or even another group serves actually to bring about the prophesized or expected behavior. So a self-fulfilling prophecy can lead to self-sabotaging behaviors in relationships or social interactions with others typically. The next term is cognitive dissonance, which is that internal imbalance or discomfort when your words or actions do not align with your values and beliefs. So, to overcome that cognitive dissonance, you need to change your words or actions or reframe your values and beliefs.
So the self-fulfilling prophecy hits home for me. I think logically and analytically, if I can say the words correctly, and I don't think emotionally often. This serves me well in parts of my life, for example, fantasy football content creation. However, it was not always beneficial with my relationships. I struggled being vulnerable and had issues with self-esteem. I would assume my past girlfriends would eventually realize I was not worthy of being in a relationship with them. Therefore, my behavior would change in such a way that they wouldn't want to be in a relationship with me anymore. However, we didn't break up because they didn't think I was worthy like I was afraid of. We broke up because I was being a jerk. Self-sabotage can be very destructive in your life if you do not learn to break the cycle. Megan, what other forms of self-sabotage do you often see that may help our viewers be more self-aware?
So that's a perfect example of self-sabotage. Fortunately, I was able to help you become aware and break that negative cycle. But in general, chronic self-sabotage depletes drive and motivation and leaves you feeling sad, anxious, and having a damaged self-esteem. Self-sabotage typically stems from a counterproductive mindset involving themes of negativity, vulnerability, abandonment, rejection, failure, distraction, uncertainty, indecisiveness, procrastination, disorganization, perfectionism, imposter syndrome, and even negative self talk.
Wow, That is a lot. I hope this is starting to bring out some aha moments for some viewers. You might be self-sabotaging and you did not realize that is what you were doing. So Megan, where does self-sabotage come from?
Self-sabotage can be explained by a variety of reasons, most of which involve childhood emotional experiences affecting your self-perception. So, reason number one, the approach avoidance conflict happens when the biological fight or flight response to maximize survival and manage threats, aka the avoidance part, is prioritized over the motivation to reach set goals, aka the approach part. So the COVID pandemic perfectly illustrates this approach avoidance conflict since a lot of goals were put on hold until the threat was minimized, which occurred on different timelines for different individuals. Number two, modeling happens when you learn from behaviors and patterns typically witnessed in childhood. So, for instance, anxious parents constantly cautioning their children can lead to them internalizing a fear of exploring the seemingly dangerous world around them. Number three, rejection or neglect in childhood affecting self-image and future relationship patterns due to lack of vulnerability necessary for a healthy and committed relationship. Number four, previously adaptive behaviors can become maladaptive over time. So when the original need or challenge requiring the specific behavior no longer exists, the behavior should cease with it. So to give you an example, when you're caring for a loved one with a sudden and acute illness, you may need to neglect your own needs to ensure that their needs are being met. But once they've healed, you need to transition back into prioritizing your own needs as well, or you're going to burn out or become resentful. Number five, trauma survivors generally view the world as unsafe and or view themselves as undeserving of anything positive happening within their life. So when someone has been traumatized by a trusted individual, they may find ways to mistrust someone close to them since they do not believe they are worthy of a faithful and honest partner.
So that is a lot of possibilities of where it can come from. In your professional experience, where do you see a lot of self-sabotage happening for people?
I see a lot of self-sabotage in situations involving relationships and careers. In relationships, self-sabotage involves choosing incompatible partners, such as people that are emotionally unavailable, picking fights, refusing to fully commit. Red flags of self-sabotage in relationships typically involve chronic mistrust, silencing the self, losing yourself in the relationship, ignoring the negative emotions, criticizing your partner, holding grudges, giving too much energy to things outside of the relationship, and even focusing on your partner's flaws. For the careers aspect, self sabotage involves disorganization, indecisiveness, perfectionism, procrastination, and imposter syndrome.
That makes a lot of sense. Most people are either in a relationship and or working for most of their lives. So how can you break out of the toxic cycle of self-sabotage?
Self sabotage may seem impossible to overcome, but healing is possible, especially with the support of a counselor. In therapy, you will learn to overcome self sabotage by building on skills and concepts, primarily things that we've already discussed in previous episodes. Starting with developing an awareness of the cycle, you can then find alternate ways to fulfill the unmet need or void, and also learn new behaviors to overcome that. Part of identifying the cycle involves identifying the toxic thought cycles that need to be reframed and even utilizing coping skills to self regulate emotional reactivity. There's a concept called radical acceptance you may also learn that can be very beneficial. It involves accepting painful physical or emotional circumstances as they are because we can't control them or change them. Throughout the entire process, compassion and kindness with yourself is essential to healing that internalized shame, often fueling the self-sabotaging behaviors.
All right. So thank you, Megan, for sharing such valuable information. I think this topic will resonate with a lot of people, and they probably didn't realize it until they watched this video. I did want to give a quick shout out to the FF Face-Off team. They just did their 4th mental health awareness podathon over the weekend for 24 hours. They bring people on talking about mental health and as well as fantasy football. They raised over $4,000 for the Hayden Hurst Foundation. That is still going on. They support mental health a lot. So we will have that link to donate in our show description as well. But it's been great. I got to be on there for an hour. So go ahead and check that out on their YouTube channel. That's FF Face Off. Just want to give them a shout out since they are also supporting and talking about mental health awareness. So the more we can talk about it, the better everyone can be for it. So thank you again for tuning in. We hope you were able to get a lot of valuable information from us. We'll be back next Monday at 9 a.m. for episode 10 to discuss setting boundaries, which I think is going to be another great episode. So again, the best way to watch the series is to subscribe to the Fantasy and Frames YouTube channel, which you are probably watching from right now. So go ahead and hit that button. If you are struggling or having suicidal thoughts, then immediately call or text 988. That is the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline and is available 24/7. So thank you all, and we'll see you all next week.